I'm Dr. Emma Milne, and today I'm talking about the fetus-first mentality. So the fetus-first mentality is a term that I use in my research to think about how society today conceptualises pregnancies, and as part of that pregnancy, the fetus. So historically, pregnancy has been seen as something that happens to pregnant women, that pregnant women do, that they experience. That's not the case today. When we think about pregnancy, often what we're thinking about is the fetus and the well-being and the health of that fetus. So today, pregnancy is seen as and understood, particularly in the medical world, as a situation where there are two patients. There's the pregnant woman and then there's the fetus. And we can see that in wider society as well. So people talking about the fetus when referring to a pregnant woman, or how's your baby, things like that. We can see there's a very clear focus on there are two people in that situation. Now, in many respects, that's absolutely fine, particularly when we're thinking about pregnant women being very excited to welcome a child into their lives. My concern, and what I talk about in the research, is when it moves beyond that, beyond this idea that there are two people, and thinking about the fetus as the priority and the focus, hence fetus first. Now, again, we can see this in particularly medical discourse around discussions of how women should behave while they are pregnant. So, for example, when women go for medical checkups, there are all sorts of tests that are done on them, many of which are not done for their own health, they're done for the health of the unborn baby. So, for example, carbon monoxide testing, that's done to make sure that the woman isn't smoking. And if she is, if the tests come back positive, then there will be encouragement for her to stop smoking. Now, obviously, there are really good reasons why women shouldn't smoke, or anybody shouldn't smoke, because it's pretty bad for you, we've now discovered. But the reality of those tests is it's to make sure that the pregnant woman isn't smoking because of the harm it will do to the fetus. So it's about the fetus. Similarly, women are often tested for HIV and other sexually transmitted diseases. Now, again, we'd hope that women would get care if they do have those sorts of diseases. But again, these tests are being done not for the woman herself, but for the fetus, to make sure that diseases aren't passed on to this unborn baby. Now, you might say, well, why is this a bad thing? Obviously, we want children to be born healthy, we want them to be born well, and pregnant women are often some of the most ardent fighters to ensure that their unborn children are healthy, and that's absolutely right. They should be doing what is best for them and their families. My concern, though, lies with behaviour by people around the pregnant women and expectations of pregnant women that they should actually put themselves and their lives and what they need on hold. So in previous videos, I've talked about the myths of motherhood and the notion that good women, good mothers will always put their children first. That's kind of one of the the central myths of the myths of motherhood. We can really see this happening now in terms of pregnancy and pregnant women. Now, women are expected to put the fetus first. In order to be the good woman, to be the good pregnant mother, you need to put the fetus first. So we see conversations happening and advice being given around how women should behave to ensure that there is absolutely no harm happening to their fetus. And some of these are quite extreme and quite dictatorial expectations of that woman's behaviour. So, for example, I'm aware of a teacher who worked in a primary school, was pregnant, and there was an outbreak of a virus called slap cheek, or I believe that's the nickname for it, because one of the symptoms is it looks like your cheek's being slapped because they're quite red. That woman then went and told her doctor in a regular appointment that there was slap cheek in the school, and the doctor did a test on her to see if she had some natural immunity to it, and told her, if you don't have natural immunity to it, you won't be allowed to go back to work. This woman was only about 5 months pregnant, so it sounded an awful lot like that doctor was telling that woman that she wouldn't be able to work for the next 4 or 5 months of her pregnancy. Now that's obviously quite a troubling position, particularly if doctors feel like they're in a position where they can tell women how they should be behaving while they're pregnant. there's also an element here of removing women's sense of autonomy and sense of what's right for them and their families. It might not be right for that woman and for the rest of her family, for her unborn child in her position and her opinion, for her to not work, for example. So the fetus first mentality really becomes problematic when it's seen to be about the fetus being the centre, the fetus being the true patient, and the pregnant woman simply being a vessel, simply being an other that carries this fetus. I'm going to be talking more about this in future videos, and particularly thinking about where does the fetus first mentality come from, how have we got here, and what are the implications for women.